What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily. So if you're looking for a good deal on an iPhone in 2020, let me reintroduce you to the iPhone XR. You guys know this was Apple's sort of low-end iPhone that came out in the fall of 2018. It was a very controversial phone when it was released for a lot of reasons, which I'll talk about. But now, halfway through 2020, it may just be the best all-around deal on an iPhone you can get right now. I was an iPhone XR user. It was my primary phone, my daily driver, and through all the controversy and criticism this phone received, I stood firm in saying that it was a good device. And now that a chunk of time has passed and many more iPhones have been released since then, I still think the iPhone XR is going to be an excellent phone for a vast majority of people. So in this video, I'm going to talk about why I still think this nearly 2-year-old phone is so good. I'll fill you in on where you can snag the iPhone XR at a discount, and maybe by the end, you'll be as convinced as I am about this phone being truly one of the best deals out there right now. First off, let's actually talk about the price, since that's sort of the main thing that classifies this phone as a good deal. When the iPhone XR first launched, it retailed for $749. It was cheaper than the flagship iPhones at the time, which is why it was so appealing then, but still quite a bit of money. Now, if you want a brand new iPhone XR directly from Apple, you can still buy it from them. They have it listed starting at $599, which is a decent discount, but we can do better. Through the Amazon Renewed program, which are refurbished, gently used, open box, or old stock items, you can pick up an iPhone XR for under $500. The prices seem to change every day, but I've seen listings starting as low as $460. That's a huge discount, but you can take it even a step further still. Sellers on places like Swappa and eBay have iPhone XR listings for just a bit over $400, if you don't mind having one with maybe a few scratches. Getting an iPhone that's barely 2 years old at a 40% discount is really the main reason why I think the XR is such a great deal. No matter where you end up looking, you should be able to easily scoop one of these up for under $500. And honestly, I think the XR has reached the bottom end of its depreciation curve right now. You aren't exactly going to see this phone plummet in price any further, and I'll explain why in just a minute. But if you are interested in doing some comparison shopping of your own, or maybe want to buy this phone for yourself, I'll leave some links down below in the video description to where you can get this phone at its cheapest current prices. So be sure to check down there so you don't miss out on any good deals. Now, on one hand, the reason why the iPhone XR has come down so much in price is because obviously Apple has released plenty of new iPhones since then. But at the same time, the iPhone XR really isn't all that dated. Put this device up against the iPhone 11 or even a XS Max or 11 Pro for that matter, and at a glance, there's not a whole lot that's changed. Design-wise, while the XR might have been Apple's so-called budget device when it came out, there isn't anything cheap about it. You still get the premium metal and glass finish that you might expect from any other Apple product. Its fit and finish still convey a sense of quality, and it's a nicer build than some other $400 or $500 phones on the market right now. Also, the design language has remained unchanged for years now, really. The iPhone looks the same as it has since the iPhone X came out in 2017. So for the last couple of years now, this is how all iPhones have looked, no matter what you paid, when you bought it, or even what kind of iPhone you got. It's just the same notched screen, home buttonless Face ID setup with big bezels and a thick frame. Critics like to hate on the design. I have my own complaints. That's fair. The iPhone needs a refresh, but that's a whole nother story. For iPhone users in general, this is what you know, this is what you can expect, and to be honest, even with rumors of the iPhone 12 coming out in the fall, I don't anticipate any drastic design changes with that new phone either. What you see here is what an iPhone has been, currently is, and likely will be, even looking ahead. And settling on an iPhone XR means you won't feel like you're missing out on anything new. One other thing I like about the XR is its size. This is a big phone. It's not the biggest in the lineup, but it's close, and for most people, having a big screen is great. Watching movies or TV shows on a 6.1-inch display is really nice, and I think that's one of the reasons why this phone ended up being so popular. In the hand, it is pretty chunky, it's not necessarily the right fit for everyone, and the glass and aluminum make it feel pretty heavy too. But I consider the size to be a big advantage, and I know a lot of other folks think that way too. Now, if you do want to pick out something the iPhone XR got wrong, it's probably the actual screen itself. And back when this phone was released, this was what most people criticized. At a resolution of 1792 by 828, this LCD screen falls short when compared to even some significantly cheaper phones on the market. A 1080p display should have been what this phone got, but let me just say this. Apple makes good displays, and while the XR isn't the high resolution or OLED screen a lot of tech enthusiasts like, the average consumer isn't going to know the difference. That's pretty evident considering how many iPhone XRs sold, and also how many iPhone 11s sold so far this year too. That phone has basically the same screen after all. The viewing experience alone, just ignoring all the specs, is great. It's a bold, bright, colorful screen, and yeah, it's not the sharpest. You can pick out the pixels if you want to look closely enough, but how close are you really looking at your phone? The so-called liquid retina panel looks fantastic as it is, and like I said, Apple didn't upgrade this display with the new iPhone 11 this year, so that's one more thing you aren't missing out on by sticking with the XR. All in all, while the screen itself isn't anything special, and maybe a point of contention for some people, most everyone else agreed that the viewing experience is good enough. It's great even, and it's something that I think most people who are interested in this phone will enjoy. Also, just as a side note, the dual stereo speakers on the XR are great too. The out loud listening experience is really fantastic. This isn't new or specific to this phone, but I always like to mention it because it's something I truly appreciate. Inside, the iPhone XR obviously packs the specs from a couple of years ago. The A12 Bionic chip, an Apple GPU, 3GB of RAM, and if this were any other phone, it might even be considered underpowered or outdated. But since Apple has control over the hardware and the software, those specs are more than enough, both for now and looking ahead, to run iOS and any other apps you can think of. A few years ago, Apple was criticized for its planned obsolescence, where iPhones seemed to slow down or start to get glitchy when a software update came out or right around when a new iPhone was supposed to be released. Now, Apple is pretty much all in with supporting their previous generation devices for years to come. In fact, the iPhone from 2015, the 6S, that's still being supported with the latest software update on iOS 14, and that's a good indication for the likes of the XR. Not only will this phone likely be supported for another 4, 5, 6 years, maybe even beyond that, the software updates it does end up receiving will likely make the phone better. Apple has pledged to make new iOS updates run well, even on older devices. And while I certainly don't consider the XR to be old at this point, if you wanted to still keep this phone for a while, you totally could. I have the iOS 14 beta running on this phone right now, and not only does it feel fast, the new features sort of make it feel like a brand new phone. And if you've seen a preview of the new stuff coming to iOS 14, you know what I'm talking about. Beyond that, while Apple does continue to make their newest devices faster with better specs, the difference isn't so drastic anymore. This phone doesn't feel slow at all. It feels basically like a flagship iPhone, and it'll be able to do anything you want it to do. And on top of that, like I said, you can fully expect third-party apps and games to run solidly. This phone genuinely does run as good as a $1,000 iPhone, and it's one of the main reasons why I can confidently say it is a good investment. A few years ago, I genuinely would have been hesitant buying a used 2-year-old iPhone. Now, getting a 2-year-old iPhone is a great deal. You save money up front, the phone runs great, it's hardly any different from a brand new one, and you can be confident in knowing you'll be getting a good software update that improves the phone for years to come. And by the way, one other thing a ton of people raved about with the XR was actually the battery life. At the time, this phone had better battery life than the flagship iPhones, and now 2 years later, I still consider it one of the longest lasting iPhones you can buy. If you're curious, this iPhone XR has 91% battery health after 2 years, which is pretty good, and if you're looking for a used or refurbished iPhone XR, I would just make sure that the battery health is at least 90% or above if you can. With that, you'll be pushing through a day of use and then some, and you can pair it with a USB-C fast charger too, or wireless charging if you're into that. All in all, the XR is probably the iPhone where battery life is genuinely good, and it's certainly one more reason to consider this phone if you're in the market. One last thing to consider here with the XR is its cameras, or more appropriately, camera. You get just the one lens around back. And in today's world where smartphone cameras have tons of lenses and a lot of improvements, you may feel like you're missing out. But here's the thing, the XR took really good pictures back when it was released. In my opinion, it looked the same as Apple's flagship phones, and I have the camera comparison videos to prove that. But even today, I still think the XR takes fantastic shots. Sure, you don't have a telephoto lens or wide angle, but looking past that, I don't have anything else to complain about. In my time using the XR, I took countless pictures that really impressed me. And even though it may not have the capabilities or features of today's smartphone cameras, it still packs a lot. With video too, the XR does a fantastic job, and this truly is the definition of a great all-in-one smartphone camera. And the selfie camera is particularly good too. The iPhones in general take the best selfies of any phone in my opinion, so you've got that going for it too. I genuinely do think the XR is a great picture taker, even after 2 years now, and I don't think you'll be disappointed with anything. So there you go. Those are all of the reasons why I think the iPhone XR is one of the best iPhone deals right now. At the end of the day, for a vast majority of people, this is going to be a great phone. It's a way to get a solid current iPhone without spending a ton of money, and it's certainly a device that has a lot of years left in it. If you're considering a new iPhone, I'd give the XR a lot of thought. I genuinely do think it's a great device, and especially now, well worth it at a huge discount. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.